Alright, chat, I think we're gonna tier list time today. By the way. Let's do that now, actually. I want to take a look at the impact that Iansan is gonna have on a lot of different characters. And I want to separate them in terms of how much they benefit from Iansan. So, at the top, we're gonna have a sizable upgrade to teams. Then we're gonna have
You still have a special place
upgrade, but only at C6 / side grade. Has viable teams. No. Alright, first, we're just gonna split the list of characters in the ones that are worth talking about and the ones that are not. So, we're only gonna talk about carries. I don't think there's anything worth mentioning for, like, official, I guess. Alright, so that's a list of, like, carries that I think are worth mentioning when talking about Iansan. So let's put him in places and shit. First off, we got Mavuika. Let's put Mavuika here. Honestly, I'm really glad Mavuika's finally getting buffed. She's finally going to be actually usable, which is great because she's not in the best state right now, honestly. No, okay. Here's the thing, alright? I don't actually think she goes here because Iansan C2 is closer to a side grade compared to Xilonen. And more importantly, Iansan generates her Night Soul over your rotation. Or sorry, Iansan uses her Night Soul over her rotation. She doesn't use it all at once when you use her skill. Which means if you kill the enemy with Mavuika's burst, you don't get the fighting spirit generated from whatever's left on Iansan. And then you start the next chamber with 0 fighting spirit, and you don't generate 200 fighting spirit before you swap to Mavuika. And so, effectively, you're going to have the same problem as you do in the Mavuika teams that just run Citlali, right? Where, like, technically you'll be able to get most of your fighting spirit, but there will be a good amount of situations where your burst is going to hit a lot less than it should because you finish the last chamber at a bad breakpoint. Think of it this way, okay? It's kind of like if you're playing Bennett Xiangling, right, in a national team, and you spam Bennett, eat a battery your Xiangling, right? If you kill the enemy right after you bursted, you start the next chamber, you're now not standing in Bennett burst because you don't have it, which means you can't E fast on Bennett, which means you can't generate energy very quickly. And so your next rotation is even slower. And something relatively similar can end up happening with Mavuika if you're not using Xilonen. It's the main reason why Xilonen sees so much play with Mavuika. It's not just that she's good, it's, I'd say, almost more importantly, that she's a lot more comfortable. And Iansan won't be more comfortable, but she will be more damage. Which would be a better pick for my Mavuika if I don't have either Citlali or Xilonen? Citlali, 100%. Xilonen... Okay. You can make a Mavuika team function as long as you have Xilonen, but Mavuika is balanced without Citlali. She's good, but balanced without Citlali. Citlali is what makes Mavuika so outrageous. Anyways, I wonder if there's any character that actually gets a sizable upgrade if I don't count Mavuika as sizable upgrade. Maybe Varesa. It's something I haven't talked about in the pre-release because I kind of just assumed that you were always going to play her with the Iansan. But if you're playing Varesa solo Electro, her ER requirements are fucking awful. Kinich? No, it doesn't seem to be that sizable of an upgrade for Kinich. It's an upgrade to his best teams at C6, but at C2, it's more of a side grade. The biggest problem is if you don't react Mavuika's burst, her damage goes down a lot. And it's not really worth it having her on a damage set anymore. I was doing some calcs yesterday, and I found that the optimal set for Mavuika and Kinich teams when you used Iansan often tended to be Deepwood. Anyways, okay, so maybe Mavuika still goes here. I don't know, man. No. I think maybe Gumming is gonna be alone in this tier then. Fuck! I don't want to be a Gumming propagandist, but I am, okay? I can't help it. Okay, is there anyone else who gets a big boost? I don't think so, right? Clorinde? Clorinde doesn't get that big of a boost, honestly. Raiden? Neither does Raiden. Shanyan Plungers? Shanyan Plungers actually do not work well with Iansan at all. Because you need the Pyro Infusion from Bennett, the jump from Xiangyun, and the Elemental Application from Farina or Citlali. Kind of difficult to fit Iansan now. But Varesa's Iansan teams are noticeably better than the other ones. Varesa's ER requirements aren't that big, but they are big enough that they're like relevant. Right? Let's take a look at what it looks like, right? So solo Electro Varesa, I guess. So one Electro with Iansan. So Varesa gets, what is it, 2 to 3, I think? So she gets 2.5 times 2 average from her own stuff. If you're playing one Electro, let's say you're doing Bennett instead of Iansan, right? So you get Farina 7, Xiangyun 5. I think it's 5. Like 5 caught from Farina, 2 non-caught, 5 from Xiangyun. It might be 4. Who cares? 2.25 from Bennett. Clear particles. Farina's on 5. Bennett's not. Right? ER requirements 180. That shit ain't happening, you know? If you add Iansan, you get Electro Resonance, which is like 4 particles, and you get Iansan's particles instead of Bennett's, and you get 1 more Fav proc. Oh, these are trivial ER requirements. It's kind of a big deal. On top of that, in a team like that, Bennett isn't providing power resonance to begin with, right? Whether you're looking at Chevreuse or Farina teams, Chevreuse teams need an off-field pyro to maintain Chevreuse's resistance shred, and that off-field pyro plus Chevreuse is already power resonance, so Bennett isn't giving you power resonance. And in Farina teams, you want to use Farina and Xiangyun. And then Varesa, so you don't have 2 slots for pyro. So in Varesa's teams, Bennett is kind of just never really providing you power resonance. Unless you're doing Bennett as your only pyro other than Chevreuse in a Chevreuse team, and you're like swapping out of Mavuika to go do an E on Bennett in the middle of your uptime to refresh the shred. But like, that's fake, you know? And the only reason you'd want to do that is if you want to do Iansan plus Bennett, right? So you'd still be playing Iansan. The point I'm making here is that Varesa's pretty much always going to be played with Iansan because her burst is useful to have. And Iansan completely trivializes what would otherwise be fairly high ER requirements. Not even Fischl. The thing with Fischl is that if your ER requirements are at 80% instead of 100, it's not like you can build a negative ER so that you can get more attack or crit, you know? And Varesa's numbers are actually kind of jacked. Like, power creep is a fucking real thing, and in a team where some of your buffers are not buffing Fischl's damage, like Xianyun, you're generally better off consolidating your buffs onto the same character. Anyways, how does Iansan fit in Xiao teams? The biggest problem with Iansan in Xiao teams is that you can't Cinder City Anemo with her. Which means that that's 40% damage you're losing out on. And that's a big fucking deal. It makes her significantly less effective. Okay, yeah, I guess we can talk about Xiao, because people asked. The thing about Xiao is he is most definitely a unit that was kind of a little bit left behind with all the power creep. Like, he's still very much able to clear stuff. But when you look at Xiao's teams right now, the best one without that much competition is Farazan, Xianyun, Farina. And the problem with Iansan is that she can't replace Xianyun because she doesn't give you enough healing for Farina. And you don't want to replace Farina because she just gives too much in a team that already wants Xianyun. And you pair that with the fact that she doesn't buff Anemo with Cinder City. If Cinder City worked on Anemo, Iansan would be close to Farina somewhat, I guess. Anyways. The nice thing is that the best Xiao team right now is a team that is not as good in AoE because Xianyun's buff only works on one target. Xiao's best AoE team right now is like kind of up in the air. There's a few that perform well. It's generally like Bennett Farina or Bennett Xiangling. And Iansan will be fine there for sure. But it will be noticeably worse than the Farina teams in single target. Than the Xianyun Farina teams in single target. I think I'll say he goes here. Like, I wouldn't really recommend Iansan for Xiao, but if you want to use Farina on your other side, you can definitely consider it. Farina has a lot of damage in that team if you play Vivi on Xianyun, but not really. Anyways, next, I guess, Chasca. Chasca goes here as well. So, the biggest problem with Chasca is that Mavuika exists. The gap between the Chasca, Bennett, Mavuika, Sitlali team and any other Chasca team is, like, sizable. Iansan does seem to be a side grade, if not upgrade, in the Chasca teams that don't use Mavuika, but it's worse than using Mavuika. But, like, that shit pisses me off, you know? Like, I can't be the only... Whatever. It is what it is, I guess. Alright, let's quickly mention some of the no's. So, Mualani, no. Obviously. Don't be an idiot. Who else we got? Yeah, Diluc and other units enabled by Bennett C6 plus Xianyun. No. You just can't slot it in, right? You need Bennett C6, you need Xianyun, and you need a reaction enabler, and then you have your on-fielder. That's 4 units. You don't have a slot available for Iansan. Itto, no. Itto struggles from not having a good last slot when you do Itto, Shilonen, Farina. So you can consider using Iansan, but like Iansan doesn't do much. Itto doesn't move that much. Yelan not good. Yelan works, but Yelan doesn't have that much synergy. She's just there because she's a good unit that works well with Farina, not because she works well with Itto. But the fact that you don't get Cinder City and that the attack buff is something that Itto doesn't like that much, yeah, just don't do it. We've got Wanderer. Wanderer has a somewhat similar issue to Xiao, where, if anything, a similar issue to Xiao, but even worse in his case, where his damage is just not 2025 material. So supports that are focused on only increasing your carry's damage and that don't have personal damage themselves are just generally going to be outperformed by Farina teams. On top of that, the Electro stack on Wanderer is kind of worthless. You can do, like, Bennett, Iansan, but the Electro stack is bad. You don't get Cinder City. It's just not the best. And on top of that, unlike Xiao, he doesn't maintain a lot of Night Soul throughout his rotation. What's the best Wonder Time? And then same for Swanee. Anyways. Who else is a no? Tao is a no. So don't fucking do this to yourself, man. Noelle is a no. Sure. Lyney. I don't know. With Lyney. I'm trying to think. In Lyney Chevreau's teams, you already have Power Resonance. So would Iansan be an upgrade over Bennett? And not having Circle Impact is also going to be really nice. I'm not sure. Although Lyney Chevreau's teams in general are like kind of meh. So I don't know. We can talk about Kinich. Kinich goes here. C2 Iansan doesn't seem to be an upgrade over the premium Kinich teams right now. But it doesn't seem to be much of a downgrade either, so for people who don't have Mavuika or who don't have Emily, it'll be really nice. At C6, it seems like it can be an upgrade, but pretty much every one of the teams where it's actually an upgrade is gonna have some sort of clunk. So I was looking at some Kinich stuff, right? This was Bennett, Emily, Mavuika. And this is an 18-second rotation. So 95k. With these assumptions. 91k for C2 Iansan instead of Mavuika. 105 for C6 Iansan, so it is an upgrade. But we have a problem here, which is we don't have all-field pyro. Which isn't a problem in or if the enemy doesn't die, right? If you only have one wave. But in multi-wave content, if you don't have all-field pyro, once you kill an enemy, you don't have a way to apply pyro to the next wave. Actually, is that even true? Wait. I gotta double check something. I need to check something. I'm gonna get John Lee so I can check without having to focus on dodging. Does he? Because, okay, sometimes it gets scuffed to, like, reattach your hook onto the next wave. So I'm wondering, is there a way to, like, intentionally not reattach it so you can Bennett Pyro Infuse normal attack to get a Pyro app during Kinich uptime? Or is that not doable? I'm not sure. What the fuck weapon is he on, man? Yeah, it doesn't seem like it's doable. Tragedy. Alright, doesn't seem like it works. That's okay. Sack Kinich angle? Okay, let's not go that far, man. I'd personally kick out Emily and use Burst on Kinich to get Cinder City plus Mavuika. You get Cinder City here. On Iansan. You don't gain Cinder City from doing that. But I did look at the team with Mavuika instead of Emily. It was a little worse, but not significantly so. But yeah, so compared to the current best Kinich team, it seems like Iansan can be upwards of a 10% increase of the team. Current best team is at around 88k. And it's a little bit more than a 10% increase. It's like 15% increase with this one. But it's like multi-wave issues, you know? And then you got Emily Mavuika Iansan C6, which is a much smaller upgrade. Iansan C6 is ever so slightly better than Bennett if you want to replace Bennett. Then if you replace Emily, this is worse. This is slightly better. It's sheet 7 we're looking at. 87k. No. Yes. No. 88k. Sheet 6, 88k. So yeah, this is slightly better with Bennett Mavuika Iansan. But here's the problem, okay? This is Deepwood Mavuika. Alright? And no one wants to play Deepwood Mavuika. And if you don't use Deepwood Mavuika, I think the team is worse. So yeah, if you don't use Deepwood Mavuika, this team is a downgrade. So like, this is with the Iansan C6, by the way. So yeah, it's like, technically, Iansan can be an upgrade over Emily in this team, but only if you want to play Deepwood Mavuika. If you don't want to play Deepwood Mavuika, she's a downgrade over Emily, which is sad. And then, if you're doing C2 Iansan, same thing. Right? And you still don't want to do Deepwood. It's like a sizable downgrade. Who's on Center City here? Iansan? Yeah, Iansan. Okay, I want to take a look at some Ayaka stuff. So... Ayaka... What do we look at? Ayaka, Shenhe, VV? Ayaka, Shenhe, Shalonen, I guess? Oh, man. This shit won't be good, huh? I'm not even gonna bother, actually. I was wrong. This is a waste of time. So, the thing about Ayaka is... she'll be able to get her burst snapshotted with max buff, right? Even if she doesn't really move, you'll still be able to get your burst fully buffed. Which is pretty significant. But, and then on top of that, in the few Ayaka teams where you play Bennett, you don't really tend to get power resonance. Unless you're trying to do fucking melt Ayaka, which is something. That's for sure. It's not bad, but like, it's still an Ayaka team. I think it goes an eh. Like, it might be one of the things you can consider when you don't need freeze because you're against bosses and shit. But, like, you don't really want to play Ayaka there to begin with. So, like, the way I see it, Ayaka's a character that is very much balanced around the state of the game when she was released, with freezable enemies being everywhere, and freeze being a broken reaction. And a character that is properly balanced around being a freeze carry shouldn't have great numbers. And Ayaka doesn't have great numbers. And I think that's a good thing. But that also means that if you try to play a character like Ayaka in content where freeze doesn't do anything, an important part of her strength disappears. You don't get freezable abyss anymore? Yeah. Pretty much every freezable enemy is not tanky enough to be alone in a chamber anymore. It used to be that for enemies like this, you had 2 ways, and for enemies like this, you had a 1. The thing is, when Ayaka's burst is, like, not quite enough to fully kill an enemy, she feels awful. And that's kind of what you're going to run into against the Earth Guards. You're going to deal like 70% of their HP because the HP multiplier is 375 instead of 50 now. You're going to deal like 70 to 80% of their HP in a rotation if you don't have Sig or Constellations. And then you have to do a second rotation against low HP enemies, which feels fucking awful. And against stuff like this, you're locked into like at best 50-second clears because you will absolutely need 3 bursts. It depends. Sometimes it's 375 and sometimes it's 300. Yeah, when it's 300, a like a really high investment free-to-play Ayaka can one rotate. When it's 375, it's not gonna happen without Sig. Like, sure, it's possible. I'm sure there's a clear somewhere of someone one rotating it with C0 stuff because they have the fucking best artifact you've ever seen. But Ayaka speedrunners are just using her burst to melt Mavuika. Okay, dude. I mean, sure. So someone arguing how melt is better? I mean, yeah. Because you get to use Mavuika. But it's not because melt Ayaka is better, it's because Mavuika's broken and Ayaka is kind of power crept. Same reason why Wriothesley's best team is Bennett, Mavuika, Zitlali. But like, that's just sad, you know? Like, yeah, anyways. Let's keep going. Okay. Here's the thing with Raiden, alright? If you don't have Iansan C4, from what I've seen, it seems like you can't get 42 stacks or 42 Night Soul on Raiden's initial hit. Because Raiden's initial hit doesn't snapshot damage at the start of the animation. It's like it looks at stats dynamically. And by the time your burst animation is over and you hit the enemy, you've been stationary for almost 2 seconds. So unless you were exactly at 54 when you swapped into her, it's cooked. And you're going to be below 42. Which means that without Iansan C4, your initial slash is not going to get the full buff. And then on top of that, Raiden doesn't move that much. At the very least, if you're playing a Chevreuse team, you will get a lot of attack on your Iansan. So even a like 35 Night Soul buff is not going to be that far below max buff. So at least there's that. The biggest problem is that like, the biggest upside to playing Iansan in Chevreuse teams is that you generate Fighting Spirit for Mavuika. That's by far the most relevant thing for Chevreuse's teams. But Mavuika has bad synergy with Raiden because, well, you know? Yeah. As it turns out, the character whose burst requires your other characters to have burst energy cost, and who generates energy for your other characters, doesn't have the best synergy with a character whose burst does not cost energy. And the worst part is it's still a good team just because Mavuika's that good. Like, it's not a good Mavuika team, but it's a good Raiden team. Which I think is interesting. There's not that many teams where you use Mavuika support that are good Mavuika teams. Honestly, I think the only one that I actually consider a good Mavuika team is the Chasca one. But that's because Chasca can go VV, and you get to VV and melt Mavuika's burst. Sucrose downgrade? No, I'd say it's a Sucrose upgrade. It feels a lot better for multi-wave stuff and for, like, second rotation stuff. Because Chasca generates Fighting Spirit. I don't know if it actually cheats better. It might not. But it feels better in my experience. Like, as long as you don't need, like, the grouping from Sucrose, which generally you don't. Like, it's definitely far from the best Mavuika team, but I think it's a good Mavuika team. Will Overload Mavuika be better with Iansan? Yeah. Yeah, Iansan's gonna be a lot better than Auron for Overload teams. But Overload Mavuika is a lot worse than Melt or even Vape Mavuika. Overload Mavuika is, like, not power creep. What's the best Varesa team without Mavuika? Most likely Iansan, Farina, Xiangling. You have no Electro Off-Fielder. You run Fischl. What do I expect? What do I expect out of Klee teams with Iansan? Not much. Actually, nothing. This is gonna be pretty awful. Like, it functions, but it's not gonna be very good. I think same for Raiden. No, for Raiden it might be here. Keqing is gonna be no, I think. I don't think you should play Keqing in anything other than Aggravate. What about playing Aggravate Keqing with official Iansan Nahida instead of like Shilonen or Kazuha or Sucrose? That might be alright, actually. Should be fine, actually, yeah. Childe? Well, you get to snapshot Xiangling. You'll have full buff for her. But not having grouping in international is like kind of stupid. So I don't like it. I think it's gonna go an eh. Is she really good for basically any Chevy user? If you go a Pyro carry with her, it means you gotta go an off-field Pyro. Or sorry, an off-field Electro on top of her. This time. Xiangling is gonna go in the eh. Like, there will be teams where you play Iansan and Xiangling together, but they're not really gonna be Xiangling carry teams. They're mostly gonna be Chivalrous teams where you want off-field Pyro if you don't have Mavuika. Ganyu? Man, it's sus with Ganyu. But it's not that bad. It's really not that bad, actually. It should be fine. Because Ganyu can dash cancel her stuff, so it should be fine. Mela teams... No. Citrusy not buffing physical is, like, so tragic. Yoimiya teams... So, if you're using her in a Yoimiya team, it's probably Chevaliers, right? And then you use her with Fischl instead of using Bennett. Bennett Circle can be annoying with the Yoimiya because her default attack string makes you like slightly move backwards. Or you dash cancel in 5. I mean, if you can RR cancel, that's faster, but sure. I mean, will it be an upgrade over Bennett? You lose Bennett C6, but you don't lose Power Resonance. And you are going to be gaining Cinder City, so it should be an upgrade, yeah. At least for the start of the rotation. But then the end of the rotation is going to hit, and you're going to not have your buff anymore because she generates pretty much nothing. Should be viable at the very least. Ayato? No. I mean, no. Don't do this to yourself. Cyno? I mean, you can use with Cyno in Mavuika team with Chevaliers, I guess. Is it better than Fischl? You are getting the can't words, man. You're getting Mavuika's damage. And the Electro characters have the upside of Mavuika generating so much fucking Fighting Spirit or so much fucking Night Soul for Iansan that you're guaranteed to swap into your character while full Night Soul. And if you have C4, you're probably gonna stay full Night Soul for like 4 seconds. Just from all the overflow and it recursively refreshing itself. I mean, yeah, it'll be fine at the very least. What if you drop Cyno for Iansan? Yeah, that's probably a bigger upgrade, but let's not talk about that. Okay. Wanderer. It'll work, but it won't be great. Alhaitham. I mean, worst case scenario, Iansan is like a 40% damage buff. So she can be used, and like Oberon can be used, but Oberon needs a second Natlin or a Hydro to function, and Iansan doesn't. Alhaitham's Quicken teams are fucking Omega scuffed right now. because your Electro options for Alhaitham teams kind of suck. So, even though Alhaitham doesn't like attack, I don't think I'll put him in no. I will put him in though. Lyney, it'll work. The problem with Lyney is you can't really if you use her with Bennett, you can't do Chivalrous because you don't have off-field Electro. Right? Man, I don't know. I wonder if it'd be an upgrade in the Citlali team. It might be, actually. Because your last slot in the Citlali team is kind of right now. Right? You don't really have great options. And Iansan should be a pretty good option, at the very least. Okay, goes in viable teams, I think. Wriothesley. I mean, with Wriothesley, you're not replacing Bennett. Because the Wriothesley teams where you use Bennett are teams where you use double Pyro. Whether it's Bennett Mavuika or Bennett Xiangling. So then it's the last slot, Iansan versus like Shilonen. It'll be fine with Mavuika. It'll be a little sus with Xiangling. I think it goes in for me. Navia. For Navia, I think it's really interesting. It might be a get no off-field app angle. And just swap back to Bennett to E. You can get 3 crystallizes out of that. But that might be a little too sus. Plunge Navia. It won't beat Farina for Plunge. Gaming, does Iansan replace Xianyan or Bennett? Bennett. Or sorry, Xianyan. Yeah. I think the fact that she can't get a crystallize is just too tragic. No, being able to give Cinder City to your carry makes Iansan so much worse. It'll be one of the Navia teams at the very least. Arlecchino. I think with Arlecchino at C6 it can be an upgrade. So we'll put it there. Both her Melt and her Chivalrous teams. Clorinde should be in the same boat for the Chivalrous team specifically. I wonder if Iansan is an upgrade to C6 Terra. It definitely is in practice. I don't know if it cheats higher. And finally, Sethos. No. Don't do that to yourself. Alright. I think that's it.